Hello, everybody. Welcome to Season 5, Episode 4 of the CR Sports Podcast. Not Season 5 of Fortnite, even though that is back.
Yeah, I've been playing the whole weekend. I feel like a 10-year-old who hasn't showered, been outside, or done anything, but hey, I'm okay with that.
Yeah, it's back. Better than ever.
Well, we'll talk about the NFL landscape and the scene, what's going on right now. We're at almost the halfway point into the season. And we got really big games today. One that already happened, Dolphins versus Chiefs, as it is Sunday while we're doing this podcast. That was the game in Germany, so it was like a morning game over here. And the Chiefs' defense is what has been impressive to me this season. Their offense is not as powerful as it's been in years past. It's kind of stagnant at times. But Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes just find a way to win games, even though it feels like they don't play their best every week.
Yeah, like you said, the defense has been great. I think their offense has been stagnant because of the lack of a wide receiver one. They really have no one outside of Travis Kelce. Literally no one. They have no one.
Ricci Rice has stepped up a little bit, but
he's okay.
Yeah,
he can be a wide receiver 3, not a wide receiver 1. But you know what? They got the win. I think they scored all 21 points before the half. So like that's kind of concerning. But even more concerning for the Dolphins that they couldn't score 21 points.
And every time they've played a good team, it feels like they've not stepped up to the plate. It's like you beat up really bad. You destroy the bad teams, but they've played now the Bills, Eagles, and Chiefs, and they've lost every single one of those games.
Yeah, Marquez Valdes-Scantling coming into the season, I thought he was going to step up and be that wide receiver 1 or 2 that they desperately need, but that's not the case. Sky Moore has looked like a bust. Ricci Rice, you mentioned, he's had a pretty decent start to the season, but he's not your wide receiver 1. And you look at the Dolphins, they were really able to limit Travis Kelce today, just 3 catches for 14 yards. Chiefs only had 21 points. One of those scores coming out from the defense with that play right before half, so only 2 offensive touchdowns. But the Chiefs' defense has stepped up in a big way, and I think they're going to piece it together before the playoffs come. It feels like they always do, but you have to mention the lack of offensive coordinator with Eric Bieniemy now gone to Washington, and their offense just hasn't looked the same, so not a lot of people are pointing that out. But the Chiefs, I mean, trading for a guy like Devontae Adams would be like literally the perfect scenario for them.
Which they can't do now since the trade deadline is over, but they are missing that big key offensive piece.
Yeah, I'm really surprised they didn't go out hunting for a receiver. You know, they could have gone for a Hunter Renfrow, who really plays the same as like a Travis Kelce almost, just kind of sits in those zones. That could have been really dangerous for them, I feel like. But kind of surprised by that. You know, they made Juju Smith-Schuster look like a competent receiver, but I mean, they just have no one right now, and that's kind of concerning.
Yeah, and people going into this game and looking around the league have talked about the Dolphins as one of, if not at least a top 3 team in the AFC. The question marks surrounding them, I think, are kind of big for me. And I talked about they haven't beaten those 3 teams that they've played that are really good. I don't know how good the Bills are right now. We'll talk about that later. But it's confusing with the Dolphins. You like their offense. You like what they do. You like McDaniels. It feels like they're a fun team to watch and a fun team to kind of root for from the side. But I don't know what the next direction is for the Dolphins and what it really looks like for them the rest of the season.
Yeah, they're only averaging 17 points per game in those losses, whereas they've been averaging like over 30. Obviously, the 70-point outlier is going to bring that average up a little bit. But their offense just hasn't looked good once they've faced these tougher teams, and the Chiefs' defense is probably one of the best in the NFL. We haven't said that in a while. So the Dolphins' next real test is probably Christmas Eve against the Cowboys. Obviously, they're going to have some divisional matchups mixed in there, but they've shown that they can beat the teams that they're supposed to beat. It's just, can they take that next step and beat the teams that are ahead of them in the rankings?
To me, it's kind of weird for the Dolphins. Like, I can't pinpoint one issue when they play those good teams. They just look flat. I mean, there's nothing is going right really on offense or defense. And they look flat.
I will say that Jalen Waddle seems like he's having sort of a much less year than he had last year. It feels like whenever they play those good teams, it's Tyreek Hill, and there hasn't been a wide receiver 2 that they can go to.
I think he's been a little banged up.
Yeah, he's had injury issues.
But yeah, he has been.
Claypool has not stepped up at all.
Has he even played like what percentage of snaps?
I think he had one. I think I saw he had 1 reception. I don't know if he's had any more.
Just like Waddle being banged up, the other team's been able to take Tyreek Hill away, and they have had nobody to go to.
I mean, even if Tyreek is double covered, he can still get open, but that's just because he's a freak. You talked about the test that they have coming up. Let's go to the other there's 2 other really good games this week. The 4:25 Cowboys-Eagles matchup in Philadelphia. I feel like that is the one that everyone has highlighted this week. This is a chance for the Dallas Cowboys to go in. I said this back when they played the 49ers, that it was an opportunity for them to really cement themselves as one of the best teams in the league, best team in the NFC. They have the same opportunity again. You bounce back after the Niners game with winning 3 straight games, and you can do that again now against Philadelphia. You can go in there, kind of prove all those doubters wrong, but it's going to be difficult. The Eagles are a very good team, even though they've had some games where it feels like they should have lost, specifically the 2 to the Commanders and the one last week where they had to pull it out. But Jalen Hurts and A.J. Brown, and it's really A.J. Brown that I see for this Philadelphia team, that he's super dangerous, an Offensive Player of the Year candidate at this point in the season. He's been dominant at the receiver position, but it's going to be a fun one to watch. Cowboys got this young kid, Deron Bland, stepping up, who's been really good this season. An all-around fun and should be intense rivalry matchup.
Yeah, I'd look to see this offensive line against this defensive line. I think that's what everyone's looking at.
Both ways too.
Yeah, both ways. It should be a great game. If they can neutralize A.J. Brown, I think this Eagles defense can be stopped. I mean, you saw it with Sauce Gardner. I mean, A.J. Brown didn't have his best game against the Jets, and look what happened. They lost.
And their defense has been allowing a lot of points. Washington, when Sam Howell just put up 30 last week, and then today you see them playing the Patriots, and they're only at 20. So I don't know this Philly defense.
Yeah, I'm also kind of concerned with Jalen Hurts' health. You've seen that he's been limping around lately. I don't know how he's progressed throughout the week, what exactly was hurting him, but that's also something to keep an eye on too.
Yeah, with the Eagles, I'm not as concerned about those 2 close games with the Commanders as they are division games, and I feel like the Eagles really battled back to win those ones, and their offense looked really good. And the Commanders' offense actually isn't terrible, especially with the addition of Eric Bieniemy, but it feels like the Eagles still haven't played their best football, and even in that one loss they had, it feels like they more beat themselves than the Jets beating them. So it's going to be a real test, I think, for the Eagles. I think the Cowboys are a much different team from the Dolphins that we saw the Eagles beat at home a couple weeks ago. So I'm looking to see if Dak Prescott can step up. He's been really good the past couple weeks, but last time he said he wasn't going to throw 10 picks this year. He went to the 49ers game and he threw 3 of them. So if he can not turn the ball over and honestly just play a game manager role, I like the Cowboys in this one.
I kind of disagree with that, Garrett. I think Dak is going to have to step up and make some of those big-time throws that you've seen him make over the past couple of weeks. He's been excellent. There's no other way around it. You saw him last week against the Rams, and he was making all the throws that you need to make. I think he needs to do that again, because if you look at when the Cowboys and the Eagles play, the defense, I can expect the Cowboys D to play pretty good just because they've bounced back after that Niners loss. And I can expect Dak Prescott to play good. And I don't want to limit Dak to when Dak, you can't be making those downfield shots, because I feel like that's when the offense gets really limited, and that's when Mike McCarthy thinks it's a great idea to run it up the middle 4 times in a row and get like a total gain of like 2 yards. I don't like when McCarthy gets like that, and I don't like when Dak gets like that. I feel like this offense is at its best when you're utilizing CeeDee Lamb and your playmakers like Brandon Cooks down the field.
I actually agree with you, and I actually think that the Eagles are going to stuff this run game.
And the Cowboys' run game, it's been terrible
horrible
this year.
Yeah, it has been awful. And I think that the Eagles will stop it, and they will have to abandon it at the end of the first quarter, and they're going to have to chuck it downfield.
Colin, I don't think they're going to have to abandon it, because I feel like the game plan should be it shouldn't be, I should say, oh, we just run the ball with Tony Pollard 35 times and see what happens. It should be, no, let's let Dak throw it 40 times and let's see what happens with that.
Yeah, it's definitely been more encouraging to see CeeDee Lamb get more targets and catches through the first couple weeks of the season. It felt like their offense wasn't really running through them, and it feels like they've shifted and sort of tried to run the offense through CeeDee Lamb, and they've been putting up more points.
All right, guys, who are you gonna pick? Who are you gonna pick in this game? I'll go last. Garrett, you pick.
I'm gonna take the Eagles.
I'm also gonna take the Eagles. I think to rely on Dak to throw the ball 30 to 40 times is just not a good game plan that I would rely on.
I don't want to say this, but I'm going to say it anyways, even though I feel like it might jinx the Dallas Cowboys. Today, and this last time I said this, it was embarrassing after a very heartbreaking loss to the Niners. It's been year after year.
I think it was defeating.
No, it was heartbreaking in the sense that my hope was there, and it just felt like, no, we suck. But I shouldn't say this. but I really do think.
All right, we got to move. This
I really do
along.
think
We
that
gotta
the
move
Cowboys.
this
we know
out
you.
there.
You,
I really
you
think
know
the Cowboys
you're
have
picking. You're picking the Cowboys.
No. I really do think the Cowboys have a chance to go into Philadelphia, and they can
See that
play.
chance.
Okay, so who are you picking?
I'm gonna pick the Dallas Cowboys in a real close one, win by 3. Let's give Cowboys by 3.
Okay.
Sunday night.
Sunday night, big game. The game that we got snubbed of last year for good reason. Obviously, that game shouldn't have been played. But it's going to be a highly emotional game on both sides, and a rematch of the divisional round where the Bengals were victorious. I think the Bengals are going to dismantle the Bills. That's my prediction.
I agree with you, Colin. I don't like what the Bills have looked like in recent weeks, and for honestly this most part of the season, this Bills defense is injured. Losing Matt Milano is huge. It stinks. Losing Tre'Davious White is another big loss. The secondary is not good. And I feel bad for Buffalo Bills fans because if their team stayed healthy, they really can compete in the AFC. I just don't feel like that's the case. And the Bengals, it feels like year after year, they start off really slow and then they get into the groove of things. And Joe Burrow played excellent last week in San Francisco, and I think he's going to continue that tonight.
Yeah, I think right now the Bengals are the best team in the AFC. And
I don't know if we can say that yet.
I like the Ravens.
Joe Burrow's calf injury, I think, was really limiting the first
Yeah.
3 weeks, which is why they struggled so much. If you look at them over the last 4 or 5 weeks, once they've gotten on this winning streak, they've just looked so much more dominant. Jamar Chase has gotten going a lot better. Joe Mixon's been better. They beat the 49ers on the road by 2 touchdowns. I think the Bills are sort of trying to get some revenge from last year where the Bengals came into Buffalo and just ran them over, but I'm still going to take the Bengals.
Yeah, I've also looked at Joe Burrow against zone defenses. He is exceptional against zone defenses. And honestly, I don't know who's going to match up against Jamar Chase, but I mean, it's just not going to be fair. I think he's going to go for well over 100 yards, and maybe a few touchdowns. And the Bills defense is just so injury riddled, and their offense has been flat of recent. Stephon Diggs is their only answer. Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs, that's all they have. If they can get the run game going, maybe that could spark something. But
can they get the run game going with James Cook, though, instead of like a 48-year-old Latavius Murray? I feel like I see them use Latavius Murray whenever they go across midfield. It's like, oh, let's not give Cook touches, even though he's that more dynamic guy. He's a better overall back. And I hear these Bills fans complaining about the usage of Murray. And it's like you have a young guy in Cook who's dynamic. He's fast. He can make any play out there, and why not use him? It's weird. And that all goes back to what we talked about so frequently last year with Ken Dorsey and how he's been a terrible offensive coordinator with them.
He's under a lot of fire recently, especially from Bills fans. Everyone wants him gone in Buffalo.
Yeah, and a big game record-wise, too, because if the Bills win this one, they will be in first place in the AFC East, and the Bengals lose. The Ravens are 7-2 now. I know they still have 2 matchups coming up, which are going to be very fun to watch, but the Bengals can't afford to lose any more traction to the Ravens right now.
Yeah, the Ravens,
playing in the toughest division in football right now.
Yeah.
Well, record-wise, yeah. The Steelers.
I feel like the Ravens always do this though. They
that's
get
what I
off
was
to
gonna
such
say.
a good start, and then they'll kind of fizzle out.
I think
towards
the Bengals are the better team.
No, I agree.
No, I think the Bengals are better than the Ravens. I'd say that, but just hard. I feel like it's hard, even just record-wise, to put the Bengals as the top team in the AFC when they're 500, right? So, or 5-4, are they?
5-3.
5-3.
4-3.
They're 4-3.
4. They were bye.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. 4-3. They'll go to if they win.
Last
If they win
place in the
tonight.
division.
Yeah, if they win
They're
tonight,
obviously
though,
better than the Steelers.
the Steelers might be the most fraudulent team that has 5 wins. In
Like
all
Dan
the NFL.
Orlovsky said, we're not good at anything except winning. Not a bad thing to be bad at.
My man Dan.
I mean, you have a pretty bad offensive coordinator.
Does he get like unnecessary hate, or is it all warranted?
No,
I
it's
mean, you've seen the.
I mean,
I
Kenny
know you don't
Pickett's,
watch
Kenny
much
Pickett's
of the
not,
rest of the
I mean,
NFL.
yeah,
Kenny Pickett's not good
to be
though.
fair, your offense is not good. You have a horrible running back, horrible offensive line, decent quarterback.
And you'd have like one okay wide receiver.
No, they have 2 wide receivers.
I don't think it's.
Deontay
I
Johnson's
think
he is.
Jalen Warren should be the starter. I don't
Well,
think
yeah.
running back's the issue. I think Jalen Warren is really good. And
Well, no, the
Najee's-
offensive line is the
Najee's
issue.
not terrible.
The offensive line is
Our wide receivers are
awful.
good. Deontay Johnson and George Pickens is a really good wide receiver. He's just so limited in this offense. The problem is Matt Canada, Pickett, and the offensive line. It's been better, but it's still not where it needs to be.
Do you next year, Garrett? Do you think you already abandon Pickett and try to just move in another direction?
Well,
I mean, your
they're
draft
not-
pick
they're not
might
gonna have a
be-
good
I
draft
know.
pick.
I know what the Steelers do. They're not going to abandon Kenny Pickett. He's from Pitt. He's playing in the same stadium that he played college in. Everyone loves the homegrown story. The Steelers don't play to win games in the 40s. They play to win games in the high teens and the 20s. So they're not going to abandon Kenny Pickett. I think they should. I don't think he's the long-term answer, but they're not going to. I'd really like to see him move on from Matt Canada, but again, I don't know if they're going to do that.
I mean, at least the one primetime games with Kenny Pickett next year.
We'll see, but
And the rest of this year.
yeah, the AFC North is pretty interesting.
Browns are going to move to 5-3. The Steelers are 5-3. The Ravens are going to be 7-2, and then the Bengals at 4-3.
Yeah, the Browns are super interesting. I think they could beat anyone. I mean, they showed they can beat anyone.
Deshaun
with
Watson
Deshaun
still
Watson
hasn't played good.
He's not
okay,
good.
but their defense.
No, Deshaun Watson's not good. I'll tell you that right now. Deshaun
okay,
Watson's not a
everyone-
good quarterback. They just have an unbelievable defense.
I know exactly.
And have Nick Chubb.
That keeps them in any
Got
game.
hurt, unfortunately, but
Their running game is still
Yeah,
extremely
Kareem
good.
Hunt's just stepped up.
Yeah.
Jerome Ford
If-
has been exceptional.
It's the offensive line,
Yeah.
really.
they have Nick Chubb.
And
Jerome Ford, Kareem Hunt.
I think if they could just
Nick Chubb's hurt.
if they can get up early, milk away a game, and just rely on their defense, like they could beat anyone.
David-
and
the
they
49ers.
have.
You see
Yeah.
David Njoku's burns that he got on his face?
Yeah.
Oh, man, that was brutal. But he's a really good weapon that they have in that offense as well. I feel like that he's a security blanket at times. And I don't know. I feel like if Deshaun Watson could possibly get back to their...
Bless you. Thank you.
if Deshaun Watson could get back to his Houston days, but I don't think he really
Deshaun
can.
Watson gets back to his Houston days.
It
They're a
seems-
Super
It seems
Bowl
winning the
contender.
Super Bowl, yeah.
But he's not... I don't think he really can. He just feels like a different guy out there.
He's been in and out of the lineup. I don't think he's ever going to get back there, but I would like to see him be a little more consistent. Another game we could talk about is the Monday night matchup. Super intriguing between the Chargers and the Jets.
I think
The
are
Jets'
gonna win this
defense
game.
has won them 4 games, so somehow they're above 500. And the Chargers are just, everyone says it every year, oh, this is their year. But I don't know if it's coaching. I don't know
It's
what it
definitely
is, but they're definitely getting held back, and they're under 500 yet again.
Brandon Staley's a terrible coach. There's nothing else to say. I don't think he's.
I don't know
good.
how he hasn't
He's-
been fired yet.
He's terrible at managing games. His timeout use,
He'll
just
go-
everything you.
He'll
a
go
coach
for
can
it on
do.
his own 25-yard line.
Yeah, it just doesn't make sense. The Jets, I think, even though I just bashed the Chargers head coach, the Jets got so unbelievably lucky last week against a New York Giants team that didn't even have a quarterback playing. It was Tommy DeVito, actually a Syracuse alum, then transferred to Illinois. Regardless, they had what, -1 passing yard? It was the most ugly game of all time.
He had more fantasy points than Mahomes, by the way.
It was awful to watch. I don't know. I don't understand how the Jets possibly won that game. They got lucky, but I don't think they're going to win against the Chargers. I just don't feel it. They haven't been playing well. Their defense is good. Their defense is really good. We know that. I think it's a matter of just staying afloat until Aaron Rodgers can come back, and if he can come back later in the season. But I think this is going to be one of the games that they're going to lose.
I actually think they're going to win this game. I think that Zach Wilson... I mean, you have to give the Giants credit. Their defense is really, really good. I'd say it's a top 5 defense. Definitely top 10.
40-0 is looking pretty brutal right now, but
Okay, I mean, we held the Bills to 14 points, but regardless, I think that this offense can kind of get going against this subpar Chargers defense, and I think this defense is going to stop the Chargers run game, which is what they really rely on. With Austin Eckler, I mean, Justin Herbert hasn't been great, so I do think the Jets are going to win this game, and that's my upset of the week.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think Brandon Staley's a good coach at all, but even Justin Herbert down the stretch has looked a little iffy in their close games. Regardless of how bad your coach is, you'd think at some point they would win a close game or two, and they just haven't. I don't think this is the Chargers' year. I think the Chargers are going to miss the playoffs this year.
Oh, yeah.
And you mentioned the Jets. It's pretty much just trying to sneak in at the 6th or 7th seed and then get Rodgers back for the playoffs.
should be fun. Should be interesting. The later games this week are a lot more intriguing. We can touch on it. The World Series, the Texas Rangers are World Series champions, Garrett, after a few years. I mean, how many years of just being awful it felt like
It was
recently.
the first one in franchise history.
Yep.
Only 5 teams left. Never
Corey-
won one.
Corey Seager, MVP, lowest ratings of a World Series ever. We kind of knew that going into it.
I was going to say, I think the main storyline of the World Series was the lack of attention and people who watched it more than the people who did watch it.
it was kind of a boring World Series, and it's
I mean, it's 2 teams that no one really cares about.
that.
Well, it's also small. The Diamondbacks are not a big market, and it's
Yeah.
teams that aren't on either coast. The Texas Rangers in Texas and then a team from Arizona, that combination isn't going to work too well. And they're going up with one of the busiest times in sports, which has been the past month or so. What baseball should have done is ended the season a month ago, or at least played the World Series games in the afternoon where there wasn't NFL football on at night, and then the World Series was like during NBA's opening week, which is when fans watch the regular season.
So this is what I point to for Major League Baseball. Look at 2016. Look at those World Series ratings between the Cubs and the Indians, the then Indians, now the Guardians. But that World Series, the ratings were phenomenal. They averaged I think 25 million to 26 million.
I didn't watch this one.
It was that World Series was amazing, Colin. I mean, that's a Chicago Cubs team that everyone was interested in. They haven't won it in like 100 years. It was really cool. It was a cool story. And I don't want to sound like a Yankee boy by saying this, but it is kind of true. You're going to need one of those huge market teams to get into the World Series, like the New York Yankees, if you want to see your ratings go up to in the 20 millions again.
Well, it's true with any sport.
Well, they need.
Well, not the NFL. And not the NFL's different. The NFL rules
NFL's
overall.
king.
Yeah,
NFL's
they'll get 100. They'll get 100 million no matter what.
Still, you're gonna draw more more viewers if the Cowboys are in the Super Bowl than if the Lions are in the Super Bowl. It's true
but it's still gonna be an outrageous amount, and people are still gonna pay a ton for commercials. They're still gonna bring in so much money.
Well, yeah, it's never gonna change. It's like the World Series. Like millions of people are still gonna watch. It's just. But there's going to be a larger gap than the NFL.
They used to watch on the 30 millions, the 40 millions, and the 20, like at least the 20s, and I think you're going to really need one of those huge teams to get back in it.
Well, the obvious solution is to shorten the season. I mean,
100 games it should be. They're not.
I don't agree with that.
Why are they playing? Why are we playing baseball in November?
All the records just like go away, and what do you compare the winning
the
seasons?
NFL
I think when the MLB
one game though, like
records.
I think when the MLB is losing money, losing revenue because no one's watching their games, I think they're gonna realize that they're gonna need to shorten the season.
But don't they bring in the teams at least bring in more money if they have 162 games or people going to their games?
Yeah, but you look at the rule changes. First of all, the attendance was way up in Major League Baseball, especially in the regular season, and fans are more likely to go to. If there was 162 NFL games, not everyone is selling out.
Yeah.
In baseball, if there's 100 games, there's going to be more urgency to get to a game. The NBA needs to shorten the season as well, but baseball just play from like May to September. You don't need to start up in end of March, and why are we watching baseball in November?
I don't know. So that's the question that they're trying to figure out. MLB's trying to find some solution to get more attention to their game.
It's also just kind of a dying sport. I mean, what would you rather watch? A football game or well, it's not 3 hours anymore, but a baseball.
It can be 3 hours still.
Yeah,
but football's over 3 hours.
Yeah, it's not.
It's not even the time-wise. It's just the style of play. It's different. It's not for everybody. I love baseball. I love watching baseball, but it's not for everybody out there, and the numbers show that.
I think it's just an old man sport to watch. I mean, there's no other way to put it.
There's no denying that, but it's just the urgency. Like NFL, this is one of 17 games. I gotta watch this.
Yeah.
MLB, this is one of 162. I have 161 other opportunities to watch this team play. Like, that's one of the main reasons. And like Colin said, baseball it's been around for so long. It's like the longest American sport that's been going. The old heads are more into it. Nowadays, kids want to watch football.
But not all kids, though, Garrett. Like, when we usually talk about baseball during the season, I mean, we're super into it. We're trying to figure out what's going on with the trade deadline acquisitions and stuff, which not everybody cares about. I think it also... If they could somehow try to find some attention with, like, they say the dog days of sports, or it's literally only baseball, I feel like that's, like, their opportunity and that's their window to try to draw people in. I don't know what they could do to get more attention to that.
I wish they could have the playoffs during that time when there's nothing going on. But that'd be difficult with the seasons, obviously.
It would make it more interesting. Maybe like a NBA in-season type thing, tournament. But
I don't even understand that. I'm not going to be interested in it.
It's honestly really great for the game. They actually had on the NBA TV channel, they had like a red zone style game, an hour free, no commercials. They were just flipping between games. It was really cool, and you could tell all the games were close. Which doesn't usually happen in the NBA. We usually have like 50-point blowouts because stars are constantly sitting.
And how about the NHL with hockey? They had 16 games in one day. That was pretty cool. It was like from, I don't even know when. It was like till like 11 o'clock at night, all those West Coast teams that were playing. But that was a cool thing. I just think Major League Baseball and Rob Manfred are going to have to step it up and find some type of solution to draw some more interest. But
I think eventually soccer is going to pass baseball. That's my prediction as a top sport in this country.
In the United States, I don't know.
I do think soccer's been on the rise more. And
I'm pretty sure. I'm actually pretty sure it passed hockey.
It's definitely going to pass baseball, especially once the World Cup comes to the United States.
Yeah.
It will definitely.
Well, the World
pass
Cup,
baseball.
World Cup in the U.S. is gonna.
It's just gonna explode the soccer ratings overall, even after.
That'd be really cool.
Baseball, it's like it sort of is what it is. It's you're trying to save the game, but at the same time, you have to accept that basketball, football, and eventually soccer, they're just bigger sports, and
I don't know if the NBA
you can't
is.
rule. It's definitely more popular.
Not like a lot, not like a lot though, numbers wise. I mean, this World Series, you're gonna look at it and go, "Oh my God, that's horrendous."
Actually, I kind of agree with you. I think that the MLB and the NBA, their regular seasons are kind of comparable.
Yeah.
In the sense that they're not selling out regular
But NBA
season
playoffs
games.
are amazing.
The NBA is where the money's at.
Well, yeah.
But that doesn't have to do with interest and around ratings wise. But regardless, Rangers are World Series champions for the first time, and it's gonna be a fun week in the NFL coming up after this 1:00 slate that was kind of boring outside of Seahawks Ravens. So that'll do it, everybody. Thank you for listening to the CR Sports Podcast. We just finished up calling Victor football games. That was fun to do this year. Hopefully we can be at Fairport next week with East Brayton. We'll see. But stay tuned. Listen, follow us on Instagram where we'll post all that stuff. And thank you for watching.